A student enters a school, the single most important factor in their success is the person in front of the classroom. Every one of us can point to a teacher who inspired us and in some way shaped the course of our lives. Great teachers are the bulwark of America. They should be valued and they should be honored. Few have worked harder to do that than our national union leaders. Randy Weingartner is right here, and Dennis Van Roken, our two union leaders who are here. And I'm very pleased that they're with us today. But if we're honest with ourselves, we'll admit that in too many places, we have no way, at least no good way, of distinguishing good teachers from bad ones. As Arnie has pointed out in the past, they have 300,000 teachers in California. The top 10% are 30,000 of the best that are out there. The bottom 10% are 30,000 of the worst out there. The problem is we have no way to tell which is which. That's where data comes in. Some places are keeping electronic records of how a student does from one year to the next and how a class does in any given year. This helps students, parents, teachers, principals, and school boards know what's working and what's not in the classroom. You know, basketball coaches have a game tape for the team to see what they did right and what they did wrong after a tough series. Teachers and principals should have a way of doing the same. Now, I recognize there's a concern among some that a teacher won't be judged fairly when we start linking students' performance to the performance of their teachers. And that's why we need to bring teachers into the process and make sure their voices are heard. And that's why we need to make sure we use tests as just one part of a broader evaluation of teachers' performance. But let me be clear. Success should be judged by results, and data is a powerful tool to determine results. We can't ignore facts. We can't ignore data. That's why any state that makes it unlawful to link student progress to teacher evaluations will have to change its ways if it wants to compete for a grant. That's why the Race to the Top grants will go to states that use data effectively to reward effective teachers, to support teachers who are struggling, and when necessary, to replace teachers who aren't up to the job. And we also need to reward states that are placing outstanding teachers in schools and subjects like math and science where they're needed most. That's one way to foster the next generation of math and science teachers. And by the way, everyone has a role to play in training these teachers. So universities and nonprofit organizations can launch programs like UTeach at UT Austin that allows aspiring teachers to get a math or science degree and teaching certificate at the same time. And businesses can follow the example of Intel and Microsoft by developing the software tools and cutting-edge technologies that prepare today's students to be tomorrow's teachers. So, we know we need better standards, and we know we need excellent teachers. But we also know that a number of chronically underperforming schools will require an extra effort to get back on their feet. Roughly 5,000 schools across this country, the bottom 5%, fall into this category. In fact, just 2,000 high schools produce over 50% of America's dropouts. Now, there's no silver bullet when it comes to turning these schools around. We know that many of these schools are in very tough neighborhoods, and kids are coming to school already with some significant problems. And the most effective and innovative approaches will be developed outside of Washington in communities across this country. The best ideas will come from educators who are helping a young man who's far behind to catch up, or helping a young woman master the English language, or going the extra mile for a student with special needs. Change will come from the bottom up. But what we can do, all of us in federal government, is reward states that are pursuing forceful and effective and consistent approaches with Race to the Top grants. There are a number of different strategies that school districts are employing to fix these schools that are in such tough shape. One strategy involves replacing the principal, replacing much of the staff, and giving the school a second chance. Another strategy involves inviting a great nonprofit to help manage a troubled school. A third strategy involves converting a dropout factory into a successful charter school. These are public schools funded by parents, teachers, and civic or community organizations with broad leeway to innovate. Now, we can't hold charter schools to lower standards than traditional public schools. If a charter school is falling short year after year, it should be shut down. But if we're holding charter schools accountable, and if we are holding them to a high standard of excellence, then I believe they can be a force for innovation in our public schools. And that's why I've encouraged states to lift caps on the number of charter schools that are allowed. Something being done in Louisiana, Indiana, and across the country. And that's why we will reward states that pursue rigorous and accountable charter schools with Race to the Top fund grants. Better standards, better teaching, better schools, data-driven results. That's what we will reward with our Race to the Top fund. But as I've said before, fixing the problem in our schools is not a task for Washington alone. It will take school administrators, board presidents, and local union leaders making collective bargaining a catalyst and not an impediment to reform. It will take business leaders asking what they can do to invest in education in their communities. It will take parents asking the right questions at their child's school and making sure their children are doing their homework at night. And it will take students, I'm not worried about Matthew, but all the other ones, including my daughters, showing up for school on time and paying attention in class. Ultimately, their education is up to them. It's up to their parents, it's up to their teachers, it's up to all of us. I'll never forget a school I visited one day when I was a community organizer in Chicago. As I walked around the school with a principal, I remember saying to her how wonderful it was to see all these kids so full of energy and hope and the spark in their eye. And when he asked them what they were going to be when they grew up, they said, we're going to be doctors and lawyers, and they all had these big dreams for the future. And I remember the principal saying that soon all that would change, that in a year or two, something would shut off inside as they began to realize their hopes wouldn't come to pass. Not because they weren't smart enough, not because they weren't talented enough, but because they didn't see a pathway to success. And that's true of too many children in this country. Maybe they don't have a great teacher, maybe they don't find their classes exciting, maybe they aren't being challenged at school, maybe their parents aren't pushing them the way they need to. Maybe nobody's setting high expectations for them. Maybe they can't afford a college education. Maybe they don't know anybody who's ever gone to college. And the reason you're here, the reason Arnie's here, the reason I'm here, is to make sure that we are giving all of those children, all our children, the pathways they need to make the most of their abilities, to make the most of their opportunities, to make the most of their lives. I'm absolutely confident that if I do my part, if Arnie does his part, if our teachers do their part, if you do yours, if the American people do theirs, then we will not only strengthen our economy over the long run, and we will not only make America's entire education system the envy of the world, but we will launch a race to the top that will prepare every child everywhere in America for the challenges of the 21st century. I'm convinced we can do that. But it's not going to come easy. It's not going to come quick. We're going to have staying power. We're going to have to be consistent. We're going to have to put the interests of our children ahead of our own parochial interests. But we have no choice. And I'm absolutely confident that we can make it happen. Thank you very much, everybody. God bless you.